Hello, degenerates, basement dwellers, and all you wonderful scrufftards. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And as always, we're gonna take a look at the front line. We're gonna take a look at everything from Tektino down through Sumy to Kharkiv to Kupiansk, down to Toretsk, Pokrovsk, and onward to Zaporizhia. But yes, we're going to take a look at everything, but what I want to highlight before we get started is that Ukraine keeps gaining ground in Sumy Oblast. The Russians have walked into a trap, they weren't prepared for it, and they're getting schwacked. Ukraine is grinding Russia down in Sumy, pushing them back ever so slightly steadily, and Ukraine is close to reaching a point where they can have a big propaganda win by forcing Russia back to the border, pushing Russia back into Russia itself. So let's take a look. All right, and we're starting off here, as always, with Andrew Perpetua and Tetkino and Sumy Oblast. Zooming in on Tetkino, we can see here we have some more airstrikes. Russia is trying to push through. Russia had moved down here. We saw Ukrainian drone strikes in the area, but Ukraine since then pushed back. Andrew has adjusted the map, at least corrected it perhaps, and now we're having Russian airstrikes in this thick forest belt around some railroads where Ukraine can move back and forth and cover to reach positions within Russia. This cemetery here, graveyard, has been highlighted by Russian mill bloggers as a Ukrainian stronghold. They have fortified this area. But as we can see, Russia has pushed Ukraine back into Tektino. If you take a look at the Mayakovsk 73 in his map, you can see he is more charitable for the Russians and has allowed Russia to... according to his map, Russia has pushed Ukraine back even further still. Still, he's not indicating that Russia is within Besalivka, though that is encouraging. But according to Andrew, Besalivka is still contested. But Russia has made a big push up here. We've talked about this before. If we move over to Sumy Oblast, we can see Russia is still aiming airstrikes at these windbreaks on the top of the hill where the Ukrainians have pushed out. This area is contested, this valley here, since we have seen Russian drone strikes in the area over here. And if we move over to Mayakovsk 73, we can also see that, according to him, Ukraine has taken control of some windbreaks outside of Oleksivka way. And let's take a look. If it is the Ukraine control map, you can see this dot here is from the 1st of August, Russia striking Ukrainian positions. 31st of July, Russia striking Ukrainian positions. And here is from the 29th of July, where Russia is sending in a FAB glide bomb on Ukrainian positions. So Ukraine is pushing out in this windbreak here into this valley and pushing into this valley, pushing along this windbreak, and they are threatening Oleksivka. This is a drone, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is an old dot from the 9th of hang on, no, it's not the 9th, it's even older. It's the 9th of July. Yeah, 9th of July, a drone interception. So no troops according to Ukraine control map at this point over here. What is this? 14th of July, Russian forces hit in Yunakivka, so Russia has pushed down along this patch of woods here. I wonder, have I made that correction on my map? No, this is an older. So according to This Russia has moved down here. I actually, do you remember I was actually talking about this? Away you go. Some time ago, a couple of videos back, that Russia would be pushing down this way, and here we are. They made that push, so why don't we correct that? You're gonna have to tag along as I make this happen. You know what, we're gonna cut it. That might make things easier and speed things up a bit. Let's make it like so. So my map, I like to try and highlight where infantry can actually hide, defend, and hold territory. So that is why my map is slightly different from everyone else. It takes, you know, forever to adjust the map when you see some updates. So I understand why the more established mappers don't do this, because it takes too much time to try and be this nitpicky where you might actually find enemies and what have you. So I totally understand why they don't do this. I mean, it saves time, but I like to do it, try to be somewhat semi-accurate with all of this. Let's see, that's supposed to be yellow, you're supposed to be red. So now we're gonna fill you like so. Yeah, lines up, right? That means Russia should be somewhere else like so, and something like that, maybe. Yeah, something along these lines. If you want to be nitpicky like that, right? Now, why do I do this? Because this gives you, to my mind, a more accurate representation of where you might find troops. For instance, this wide open field, unless you have trench lines in the middle of the field, you won't have soldiers maneuvering out on this field. They will, like I said, be coming down this way. So that is why I could tell you in a couple of videos past, a couple of videos ago, that they would make this push down this way, because we could outline where cover is located, and we can now see where you have points of contact, like here, and this is the most likely approach point for the Russians and what have you. And now we saw that that was the case. And so, okay, Yunakivka, I'm fine with that. We're now taking a look at Kindrativka and Drivka and what's happening. So this is on the top of a hill, and let's see if I can show you terrain. Sounds good. Yeah, you can see here, top of the hill right here, and then you have downward slopes into these valleys where you have lakes and what have you. So Ukraine is pushed out to the top of the hill here and are in control of it. Maybe topographies, but now we're seeing it much clearer. Sorry, I used the wrong map. So now we can clearly see that you have the top of the hill here where you have these windbreaks, and it's sloping down into these valleys where you have the lakes. And this is where Russia has been aiming those airstrikes for the last couple of days, trying to hit the Ukrainians as they're pushing into these windbreaks here. And Kindrativka is of course liberated, and Drivka is secured, and as we've seen, this valley here was hit by Russians the other day. So Ukraine is pushing north along these windbreaks, pushing into this valley and coming out to the east. Can't really reach Oleksivka from this point, as we can see now, where we have cover outlined, big open fields. This is not where Ukrainians can rush across to threaten Oleksivka. Maybe they can come down this valley here and reach this farm, and if they do that, they might threaten Oleksivka from the west. What they might do is try and push north along the lake, but as you can see, narrow portions of cover just along the shoreline of the lake here, where you have trees and bushes and vegetation. So if Ukraine wants to push north here, I mean, if the Russians have a couple of machine guns firing south, it's a difficult approach for the Ukrainians. On the flip side, call in drones and mortars on a location. Russia doesn't have many hiding places. They can't spread out. Easy targets for indirect fire and kamikaze drones in this case. So that might help Ukraine with the push north. And if they do push north along the they're gonna have to come up on the eastern side. Not much cover. I wonder if they can make that push, because I was wondering if they could reach this shallow valley to reach the windbreak here, and if they can fight their way through this windbreak and coming over here, they isolate this wooded area here, and then they have cut off Oleksivka from the north, right? See what I mean by outlining where you have cover and where infantry can hold positions, defend positions, where you can advance through cover. But can Ukraine make that push along this lake? I wonder. At the same time, we have seen on Mayakovsk 73's map that this windbreak is under Ukrainian control. It was contested for quite some time, and now the southern parts of Oleksivka are contested. I'm suspecting we have Ukrainians down here, and we have fighting within Oleksivka would be my guess. What else? We are seeing, the Ukrainians pushing north along the windbreaks here. And as you can see, with these lakes and what have you, not that many areas where Russia can dig in and defend. You're surrounded by these wide open fields. So this is where you will have firefights. This is where infantry will face off as the Ukrainians are trying to push north. And as you can see, it's not that much in terms of territory that the Ukrainians need to push in and reclaim in order to push the Russians back to the Russian border. And that is, of course, a massive propaganda win for the Ukrainians if they can pull this off, forcing the Russians north back to the border. And then you can have this big propaganda thing for the Ukrainians that they have pushed Russia back to the border, back into Russia here at Sumy Oblast. And like I've said before and explained, this is of course the third phase, or fourth phase even, of the Kursk incursion. Knowing that after pushing into Kursk, Ukraine knew they would eventually be pushed out. That meant a battle would be fought within Sumy Oblast, and the Ukrainians prepared for it while they were in Kursk. Russians took the bait, advanced into Sumy Oblast, and stepped into this trap that I was talking about months before it even happening, if you remember. And here we are. Trap is in full swing, and the Ukrainians are pushing the Russians back here in Sumy Oblast. The Russians, they do have some issues to consider over here on the western flank of Sumy Oblast. Moving up to Tektino quickly, highlighting just the Russian counterstrike having pushed the Ukrainians back in the Tektino area, as we might expect. They're probably amassing forces here to secure their own territory, to ensure that Ukraine is pushed out of Russia proper. But Ukraine still holds the outskirts here of Tektino by, it seems most reasonable conclusion. That's my map, Tektino and Sumy Oblast. Sumy, interesting, with Ukraine advancing onto the top of the hill and moving down slope now into the valleys here towards this lake. And if Ukraine can do this, they have a proper propaganda win, and it does appear as if Oleksivka might be the next town in Sumy Oblast to be liberated. That's that. Moving on. Right, let's see what else is going on. We have slight advances here into these windbreaks outside of Lubbokin, north of Kharkiv. Ukraine, a week or so ago, secured the small village of Selene, pushing the Russians back. Russia launching interesting drone strikes and artillery strikes at Vovchansk along the railroad here. Where we also have some Ukrainian pushback after Russia got across the river. This seems very focused. This line along the railroad, you have the railroad bridge here. I wonder, is this an attempt to isolate the forest from the city? So the Ukrainians over here will struggle moving in to support a potential push into an attempt to push deeper into the woods. Could that be it? Screening off the woods, as it were, from reinforcements from within the city. I don't know. It seems very deliberate, this line here. Doesn't seem very random at all. Not much happening north of Kupiansk. I know ISW has Russian claims that the Russians are down here. I can show you actually if we move on over to the ISW map here. I'll show you the Russian claims at Kupiansk. Here you're going to see the Russian claims, how they've moved down to the west of Kupiansk. Nothing confirmed whatsoever. The yellow is Russian claims. And let's see here. According to Deep State ISW, most of the territory north of Kupiansk is under Russian control. Confirmed. Andrew is not as certain that the territory here is well and truly under Russian control, but I mean, seems reasonable and plausible, doesn't it? What does Mayakovsk 73 have to say about it? Yeah, he's kind of in between ISW and Andrew, isn't he? He's on track with Andrew that the entirety up here is not under Russian control, but he's also showing that, the Russians are coming down to the west of Kupiansk. Very significant if the Russians can move down to the west through Sobolivka into these woods and reach this highway here and cutting off Kupiansk to the west. This is a crucial push made possible with this advance here. Russia moved in here and forced Ukraine to allocate resources to this part of the front line. More than likely moving troops from Kupiansk, weakening the situation in and around Kupiansk, and allowed Russia to make this advance that now threatens Kupiansk. This could be a real issue for the Ukrainians if Russia can establish a presence and not just have it as contested west of Kupiansk. This could be a big problem. Back to Andrew. Moving south. What do we have? Not much happening until we come down here. Russia is placing a flag in the southern end of Toretsk, but we do have this push towards these trenches located. You can see the trenches here, right? Ukraine has apparently reclaimed these trenches. And they also made a counter push into the northern parts here of Toretsk. So it's kind of the beginning of a pincer move here. Let's see if Ukraine can actually pull something off, coming in and threatening to cut off the forward elements of the Russians. Mayakovsk 73 has a different interpretation of how Ukraine has advanced. Andrew had Ukraine pushing up from the south straight north to these trenches, but Mayakovsk 73 has some other ideas that Russia came into the south and reached southern parts of Toretsk, while Ukraine is in control of this part of town and making the counterattack from this end up here on the 1st of August. Meanwhile, this is a from the 31st of July tank shells. Ukrainian tanks opening fire on Russian positions. So yeah, a bit of fog of war going on here. Unclear which way Russia moved in to plant that flag, and unclear how Ukraine pushed up to reach those trench lines. Russia is pushing hard at towards Siversk, a bit to the south here, throwing everything they have at the Ukrainian front lines, and Ukraine is taking out several Russian vehicles that are taking part in this assault towards Siversk. But as you can see, Russia is making ground here, despite losing a ton of vehicles trying to push forward. Coming down south, pretty much a stalemate in and around Toretsk. Russia is not making that much headway, but they are advancing here and there, pushing up through Leonidivka. But I mean, this has been ongoing for months, trying to come up to the west of Toretsk, hardly making any headway around Dulivka here. They made some push here and there, but this has also been ongoing for months, pushing what on average is it 20 meters per day along this particular front line. It's very slow going. Gonna return to Pokrovsk and Mironorad in a bit. The collapsing front line, again, not so much. Russia was moving through areas where Ukraine had built few defensive lines. Ukraine had no intention of holding this territory for a length of time. Why the Ukrainians had made those plans, I don't know, but I'm sure it would make complete sense if we had insights into the Ukrainian planning. So the Russians moved through this area where you had few Ukrainian defenses, and now, boom, they ran into the proper Ukrainian defensive line, and as you can see, the Russians aren't making any headway at all, essentially. And you even have a Ukrainian counter push at Malivka, and you'll have the same up here at Seleny High, where there's a pushing back and forth in the middle of this small town village. So the collapsing front line was falling back a couple of 100 meters per day, controlled fashion, a controlled fighting withdrawal until you reached proper defensive lines, and now the Russians are struggling to advance once more. Here you have interesting events. Ukraine is counterattacking in the middle of Kupiansk. Russia was about to be pushed back out here along the coastline, but they've regained momentum as it appears. At the same time, we know that Russia has reached these apartment buildings, because if we take a look at the Ukraine control map, let's see if we can move down to here we go. This blue dot was the wrong one. I want the red dot. 29th of July, so a couple of days ago, roughly half a week ago, we have, this is from the 10th, this is the 27th. So the Russians were here in this apartment complex on the 27th and on the 29th. And this is killed Russian infantry in Stepnohirsk, shown by drone. Russian forces in building in South Stepnohirsk hit by Ukrainian strike. And then we have this even further back. Ukrainian position shelled on the 11th. So Russia has had a presence, and are they still here? That is the big question. According to Andrew, there's a chance, because here you have marked red that Russia is in control of this building at least. So seems to be a fluid battlefield, with the Russians pushing up far north into this complex here. Ukraine attacking here, now Russia's counterattacking. Ukrainian assault into the middle of town. Ukrainian vehicles producing smoke, indicating they're trying to hide their movements and stuff like that. Russian strikes against Ukrainian vehicles over here. This is a fluid battlefield, back and forth all over the place. So we'll see how that ends up in the end. But the Ukrainians are absolutely dishing out a world of hurt to the Russians, counterattacking over here and striking the Russians up here with drones and what have you. Now, Pokrovsk, let's take a look. We have some updates here. Take a look. If we move back a day or two, this is on the 29th. We can see here that Satushok becomes contested, according to Andrew. And on the 2nd of August now, that this area expands a bit to the west towards Rodinsk. And we also see that Russia is pushing up north towards Shakov, that we keep returning to. Russia moving up through the valley here, trying to reach Shakov. They want these bridges. We have, let's see, 1, 2, 3 bridges, 4 bridges in the Shakov area that Russians are really interested in to secure, in part to cut logistics flowing through Shakov towards what are the towns called over here? I've lost my bearing. Shakov coming through here towards Belutsk, move down to Rodinsk to reach Pokrovsk eventually. But not only that, yes, Ukraine can blow the bridges at Shakov if Russia is pushing in to take the town. Absolutely. That's probably going to happen. So why is Russia so interested in these bridges? Well, because of the roads. The natural road network leads to Shakov. So heavy equipment, logistics, and tanks, armor, and stuff like that, and medevacs wants to move fast, and that means path of least resistance. So if you want logistics to work, you try to achieve or try to establish a path of least resistance where you can move fast until you get close enough to the front line that it becomes dangerous, and then you try to leave and use dirt tracks and stuff like that to avoid getting hit. But you want the path of least resistance, and that means following roads. It speeds everything up when moving logistics, moving tanks quickly back and forth on the operational level, and that means the roads will take Russia to Shakov, and that means Russia will build their own bridges with their engineers and pontoon bridges and what have you somewhere in this area should Ukraine blow up those 4 bridges, because Russia will use the natural road network to speed up logistics and to move troops as fast as possible to the front line. So even if the bridges will be blown, Russia will still move to secure Shakov, because all the roads leads up to Shakov, and then Russia will figure out how to cross the river up around Shakov, despite the bridges being blown. So that's why. So it's interesting. All of this yellow contested area over here, I'm pretty sure we're seeing Russian forces pushing hard into these valleys with infantry. Here, west of this river, let me show you the river. So all of this yellow here to the west of the river, I'm thinking this is more than likely Russian smaller units of Russians, Jaeger-style commando units, conducting raids and ambushes. You even have a Russian drone attack in the middle of the yellow field here, indicating you have a Ukrainian presence. Because that is what the reports are telling us, that Russia is pushing these small units of 4 guys, maybe 6, past Ukrainian strongholds, sneaking past and causing havoc behind the Ukrainian lines within Pokrovsk, and as well as in and around the area of Rodinsky. And so a lot of these contested areas are more than likely based on the reports of a Russian ambush here, a Russian ambush there, a Russian strike here, and a raid here. So not really big infantry formations pushing in, but rather these smaller units moving around, doing hit and run ambushes to disrupt and confuse and what do you call it? Cause confusion for the Ukrainians by operating behind their lines and sometimes in the middle of the Ukrainian lines. So that is what it seems that these yellow areas represent, where you have Russians moving around conducting hit and run ambushes. Same thing goes for the area down here in Pokrovsk, where you have some Russian units popping up in the middle of town, ambushing logistic trucks driving down a street in the middle of town of Pokrovsk, for instance. This is interesting. Russian on his way to surrender. So Russian trying to leave Russian positions to move north on his own on foot to reach Ukrainians. Interesting turn of events there. But that's pretty much it, I think. Let's take a look at the Ukraine, the ISW map here. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about. This is confirmed Russian positions, but this is where you have confirmed Russian infiltration units conducting raids in the middle of town. Doesn't mean you have big infantry formation. Russian mill bloggers are talking about this themselves, that no, this does not indicate that Russia is in the middle of town. It means that they have small commando-style units operating in Pokrovsk. Same thing goes for this push here. If you read what ISW says about this red area, that means that you have confirmed Russian commando-style units operating here. And up here, it claims that you have Russians maneuvering again with these smaller units. Interesting to note that Toretsk here and Boykivka are yellow, meaning it is a claim, nothing confirmed that Russia is in these two towns, and the same can be seen on the Ukraine control map. We move up to Mirnorad. Here you can see where you have confirmed Russian presence according to Ukraine control map. Novotoretsk and Boykivka, you don't have any confirmed Russian presence in these towns. And you also don't have any confirmed Russian presence pushing up north like all the other mappers are showing. So lots of claims, but we can only be certain that we have Russians in this valley here trying to push to Shakova, and that we have Russians on the outskirts of Novotoretsk. Let's see, this here is a drone hits Russian positions. This is on the 13th of July. And this Russian positions hit on the 11th. So since the 11th and 13th, we have no further confirmation that Russia has been advancing in the Novotoretsk area. This is from the 10th of July, and it's simply a Ukrainian soldier walking in Novotoretsk. So, fog of war. We don't know if the Russians are in Boykivka or Novotoretsk as far as I'm concerned. Maybe some of you guys have a different opinion. But yeah, so let's see here. What did they say? What's this here? Russian drone observes soldiers claim to be Russian moving through eastern Pokrovsk. And this is when the Russians ambushed that car. And Ukraine dropping drones on Russian positions in the center of town. Uh, like I said, they more than likely, after these ambushes took place, they have spent a lot of time trying to secure the center of town, locating these Russian commando units and hitting them with drones. What we do know is that Russia is trying to push up through Sverove and into Leontovichi, these suburbs to Pokrovsk, and this appears to be the Russian main push at the moment to force Ukraine to allocate troops down into Pokrovsk, in the southern parts of Pokrovsk, in hopes of making it easy for Russia to push through Razine and reaching Rodinsky as the Ukrainians are moving troops into town itself. So yeah, ranting along. Should that be the end of it? I think that will be the end of this. So if you stuck with me through all of that, congrats. You are a patient man, person, woman, whatever. But yeah, as you can see, Ukraine has some advances here and there along the front line. Russia is pushing hard, obviously. Appears they might actually be able to outflank Kupiansk to the west, securing Tektino. But at the moment, they are struggling in Pokrovsk. They're trying to push through. They seem to have very little success at the moment. The front lines are static, but they are pushing slowly towards Shekova. But I mean, Sumy Oblast, Ukraine is pushing. Ukraine is pushing and grinding the Russians down, and that could be a tremendous victory for the Ukrainians if they can push Russia back to the border and start liberating more and more towns, because that will force Russia to push to move more troops and resources away from the front lines within Ukraine up to Kursk to help the fight in Sumy Oblast. Really important that Ukraine can push Russia back in Sumy Oblast. Anyway, that's gonna have to be it. As always, go på marsch Ukraine and give them hell.